Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Jack Reynolds. I'll be helping to moderate today's webinar. With me is George Howser, Senior Performance Manager at Xtime. Today, George is going to talk about how to get the most out of Enhanced Multimedia. A few housekeeping items before we get started. All attendees have been muted, but if you have questions throughout the session, please put them in the GoTo console on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll be taking 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions. We will also be sending a recording of this presentation after the webinar. George, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Jack. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. Once again, my name is George Howser. I'm a Senior Performance Manager with Xtime. Been with Xtime for going on about 5 years, right? And we've launched a lot of different products, self check-in and Lyft integration, but also enhanced media. And this is one of my favorite topics to discuss because it's so different and unique, right? Now, taking videos and pictures have been around for quite some time. And generally that was done by maybe a technician using their personal phone or an advisor. But Xtime packaged this together, not only to be customer facing, but internal dealer facing, as well as putting reporting on there. So that's what we're going to discuss today, which so happens to be one of my other favorite topics. So let's see what's on the agenda. So there's going to be some things within the session that we definitely want you to walk away with that would be beneficial. So there's primarily 3 things that we're going to discuss. First and foremost is going to be using the data to drive evidence-based decisions and improve results, right? So that's kind of the foundation of reporting, all the fruits and labor, that you put into the process part. Well, how do we, create evidence of the results with that? So we'll talk about a few different touch points related to that. We are also going to talk about the latest and greatest updates to enhanced media reporting. So there's a new report that's out there. We'll take a deep dive into it, look around and find the areas that are going to be the primary focuses when we're looking at that. So good news there. And then where to find the data that you need, all the different touch points. So there's many different touch points that exist before this enhancement, but are very specific, right? And kind of specific to your process on how you're using media. So we'll take a look at those as well. So the first one we're going to look at here is use data in a productive, efficient way. Now, just kind of the foundation, right? Almost a famous quote is successful reporting and information delivery drives informed evidence-based decision-making for dealerships. This is a key point because, everything that you put into, not only the process, but the expectations, you're going to need to look at these day in and day out, right? And make decisions on where you want to go. Now, they could be at the simplest level is utilization, or maybe, dabbling into areas of, how should we move forward when creating videos, right? So there's a lot that goes along with that. But when making decisions, there's so many things that our reporting can provide you today, right? And in the first one, we kind of just talked about very briefly is how are my technicians and advisors performing, right? That's one of the key components here of kind of, the first things that we want to look at to help drive consistency. But, there's other components to this too. Does adding one or more video to an RO affect our customer view rates? That's an important one, right? So if you say, hey, I'm going to put in one video, my chances are probably greater that a customer is going to view that video as opposed to 4 or 5, right? Because now you've increased the odds of some not getting viewed. So I'll be honest with you going through data just from what I've seen, but this may not be true for your location because each dealership is going to be somewhat different. But, in looking into this, I have never seen a difference in view rates compared to ROs that have 1 video or 5 videos, meaning the other ones are added to ASR lines, right? So our reporting can do that, right, at its highest level. And then the third one here is, what are my technicians' average video recording time? And why is this important to me? Well, this is a key point here because there's huge differences between creating one video and multiple videos. So traditionally, one video will be added to a primary line that discusses everything, all the ASRs if there are some, and the primary lines for which the customer came in for. But a little bit different because those are they could range anywhere from 50 seconds to a minute and a half, and I've seen some upwards to 2.5 minutes consistently from specific technicians. But that time is going to be a little bit different if you're adding multiple ASR lines. because you're just discussing those ASR lines specifically, and those could be 20 seconds, 15 seconds. But if you said, which majority of our dealerships do, that we want to create one video that's all inclusive to everything, and that's probably going to run a minute and a half. But the tough part is, right, we can't QC and quality check those unless you manually do it. So in some cases, you may be creating 500 videos a month, and some groups that have 10 dealerships may be creating 17,000. How do you check all those? Right, so we can't tell you what's being said and what's not, but we can look at the average time, because if the idea is to create one video that's in there, right, that time, if you see somebody that's consistently a technician at 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, it throws up a red flag. So our reporting can do that as well, is help identify that. So we're going to walk through some of those steps. But do I want my technicians to add videos directly to ASR lines or primary lines? Well, that's the last one. And this one's interesting because, when we talk into look at the different touch points, we can specifically give you line closing rate on ASRs if you attach it to it. But maybe it's up in the primary lines. But if it's in the primary line, then the idea is that we're going to discuss every single RO or ASR that we can. How do we know that the technicians are talking about them? So all great questions. But I think kind of rewinding here a little bit, let's kind of talk about effective ways to set the foundation for the expectation. So there's 3 things that come to mind. First one is plan backwards. So what that means is, you have an end game. That end game is a certain utilization percentage, a certain quality of creating videos that the technicians have to find. But not only that component of it is, how are we going to use the reporting to drive the results? And in addition to that, is our goal in the beginning, is it perfect or good, right? Because the end result, you would want perfect, but there's going to be all these things that happen up to that are good, right? And we build off those, and we get better each time. We display the data to the teams, show them the benefits. But lastly, it's imperative the first 90 days, right, that we're looking at the data consistently. If it's not every day for the previous day, then it's every other day. And we're posting it up. We're showing the benefits of the closing rate. We're trying to show the team, the end game of this is why we're doing this. So reporting can be used great in those ways. And I say after 90 days, it's a lot different in the beginning when you set up an alert in the system from a management perspective. Alert me every time a video is not created or a video is not sent by an advisor. That can be overwhelming because you may get tons of those. So after that 90-day rule, right, you can kind of look back and say, okay, well, let's change this up, right? I can't look at this stuff every day. I've got other things that I need to focus on. So maybe let's just rely on the alerts that get sent out, which don't get sent out as much as they did in the beginning, right? So I think those are important too. And maybe then you want to look at the data, mid-month and then at the end of the month, right? So clear distinction between the first 90 days and after the 90 days. But also, how do we present this information to the team, and how do we produce results if we're not seeing that within the first 90 days? Now, many of you have probably already had Enhanced Media launched for quite some time, and maybe some are newer to it, but it's never too late to start, right? So if you're not getting the results that you want to see, what do we do? How do we change what we're doing right now to get to that point? And I've seen success used for incentive-based plans, right, for advisors and technicians. Now, these aren't going to extend, indefinitely, right? But there's just certain, times within the beginning of this, or you're not getting to where you need to be, that can be highly effective. Second one, export the data, right? Post it for all to see. I've even had dealerships that, are at 90% video creation from their technicians, but the advisors are only sending it out like 40% of the time. They've actually posted the data in the shop for the technicians to see of which advisors are and aren't sending it out. So that's something that it worked for them. It may not work for everyone, but it's just an idea. The more that they can see this information on how they're performing, the better. But also use the data to show the benefits, right? So what are we trying to do here? We're trying to increase CSI. We're trying to increase revenue within the shop. Now, in some cases, it may be hard to get an exact number on how this has affected CSI. Maybe there's some ways internally that you can do that. But for sure in the data specific, when it's specific to reporting average dollars per line closed, right? And if we could show the team the benefits of that, right, it's going to be huge. And not just once or twice, but quick touch points within our system to be able to export it and just send it out to the team. So that leads us into the new EMM reporting touch points. Before we start on this one, I'd definitely like to say that everything that you're going to see here is a result of our dealerships, right? Letting the PMs or our programming team know what needs to be changed. So whether it's us, being the conduit to that and bringing that to the team, it does help, right? So if anything ever comes up where, it'd be better to do this, why aren't we tracking it that way? Please reach out to your PM, or in some cases support or whoever we need to talk to make us aware of it, because we do take those in and we do make those changes. So why did we do this? Well, the big thing is at the end of the day, there's 3 stats that we're looking at that are going to be the most important, just the fundamentals, right? Did a technician create a video? Did the advisor send the video? And did the customer view the video? Now, it was interesting within our reporting because 2 out of these 3 we could give to you very quickly, right? We could display it in a dashboard, you can export it, and you can send it out to the team. But the big driver behind this change is going to be, did a technician create a video? Well, we've always known that technicians can create videos by looking at the numbers, right? It would give you, 20 videos created, 15 photos created, but it never gave you percentage, right? So you want to know utilization. And a lot of times, whether it's Mazda or Audi, they're tracking this, right? Because there's an expectation for their dealers that they use video MPI. But not only that, in some cases, right, they're also tracking, did the customer view it? So these are important. We need to be able to give you percentages related to that. So that leads us to our new touch points. Well, actually, the first one is just informative, and then the other one is the actual name of the report. But we're going to start with green inspection forms. So there's literally 2 ways that you can add a video on here. I could have it on the RO, you could have an ASR, or maybe you just put it in the primary line. But in some cases, the inspection form will be marked green. Nothing yellow, right? Nothing red, it's just all green. So we were tracking those counts. However, in some cases, we weren't able to give you the advisor send rate based on certain situations. So it was actually deflating that number. That has been corrected. That was actually corrected just before the beginning of November. So when you're looking at advisor send rates, right, you can have full assurance that everything is being accounted for if it was sent or not sent. So we're going to be 100% accurate on those. Now, on green inspection forms, you may be a dealership that says we're going to automate these. And in some cases, you choose not to based on specific reasons. Either one, we are counting those today, whether it's automated or not. The next one here, we're going to look at the video impact data. So this is the new report over here to the right that we've added. Now, the report specifically named video use by person. So we're going to take a look at that one here. So a couple things I want to focus on first before we get into the data sets is if we look over to the far left, we can see exactly where that report is. So these reports that sit up here for RO summary, all the details, those have always been there, but we've added this one here towards the bottom. A key point on this one too, and this is true for a lot of our reports, if we look over to the right, we can also choose the make, right? So if you just want to see Audi, you just want to see Mazda, whatever it is, you can pull those up. It just depends on your expectations, right? Is it every vehicle or is it just, specific ones to our manufacturer? But let's take a look up here. Now, at the very top, we have 2 toggles. The first one here is going to be technician and then advisor. So 2 totally different processes of what we want to track. Technicians, did we create a video? Did the advisor send it? So we're going to start on the technician one. So we're going to go over here and we can look at the first column here. We have technician name. Now this next column here is going to be number of videos in RO. So for this dealership within this time period, they've had 167. Now this is the total videos, right? Some of the ROs could have had 5, 6. We're accounting for everything. Because at the end of the day, if you created a video, this next column, we want to see if it was sent to the customer. So out of those 167 videos created, 111 were sent. And then it gives us a number here of 56 that were not sent. Now, out of those ones that were sent, right, the 111, there were 50 views on there. So that's just below 50%. This next column, we're going to go over to number of ROs with a video. So this leads us into the technician stats. So this is a specific count. Doesn't matter if there's 5 videos added to one RO. We want to know, was there at least one video added to that one unique video. Now, it so happens that 157 of those ROs had at least one video, right? We don't want to inflate this number because we want to get you an exact percentage. So the dealership had 311 ROs, so we can see that here in the column. So out of those 311 ROs, 157 of them had at least one video added to them, which gives a combined technician utilization rate of 50%. Now we can go down here and then we can look specifically at those utilization percentages based on technicians. So this is the primary reason, one of them, why we created this, because our previous reports, if you go up to RO summary or ASR summary, it never showed you that, right? We want a full sample size of everything that's coming into the system in all actions that are being done. So this will give you the ability to do that. So let's go over to the next one and let's check out advisors. So advisors are a little bit different, right? Now we could still use our filtering options to find, whatever make we want or drill down to a specific advisor. But we're going to focus on a couple different stats that are related to this. And it was kind of the first section that we talked about. Number of videos in RO, 167. So we're not looking at, is this a green inspection form or their ASRs added? It doesn't matter, right? We just want to look at the total sum. And as we look at the total sum, what was sent? 111, and what was not. So we can look at down here and we can see peak, right? For example, we take a look at peak. You had 56 videos that were added. Now, 33 of those were sent to customers. So that's a little bit over 50%, right? But you still got 23 that weren't sent. So after this one, let's take a look here and let's look at it from a little different view. So when you log into the reports, there's 2 things that you can do. One, you could look at a dealership level, or maybe you have access to the group. So what we're looking at here is specific to any user, right? Manager, FOD, ownership, whoever it is that has access to all the locations. So if you go in from a group level, this is what you'll see. Now, this actually just came to me yesterday, and I was told it's going to go live tomorrow, which is Thursday, for all of our dealerships. So this is going to be important too, because, well, now we've solved the problem. How do we do it at kind of like an enterprise level? So if you notice here to the left, we're going to look at the dealership names. You're going to have plus and minus signs where you can, even drill down further. But I would imagine, if you're just wanting a high level view and you just want to see the dealership names, you can keep those up there too and see how each dealership is performing. So this is another one. Now it's not live for you right now, but coming tomorrow, I was just notified by product team and we added this to the deck. So once again, if there's any recommendations that you have, please let your performance manager know, because our team does make these changes. Now exporting it. This is actually kind of a tricky one, and it's come up quite a few times. So we're actually looking at the same report, but if you look at the top right, there's actually 3 dots up there. It's like in a little square box. Now these actually don't appear unless you're actually hovering over the report itself, right? If you're outside of the report in the filtering section, you won't see these pop up. But as soon as you hover over that, you'll see the 3 dots. As soon as you select that, you're going to see a drop-down list to export the data. So you can either do it by Excel or PDF. Now this is true for a lot of our different touch points in the other reports, even the summary tabs where these exist. So you may not see these unless you actually hover over the section and then it'll appear. Just click on the dots and you can export it in a quick, efficient way. Now this brings us to our next point, right? So we have these data sets now that we can tell you performance specifically on utilization for technicians and advisors. So now you take this data and whether it's yourself or a lead, another manager, now you're going out and you're talking to the staff, right? The technicians or advisors that don't meet that expectation. And you're going to hear, for the most part, sometimes is why I send them out all the time. What's going on? The system's broken. It's not, giving us correct stats. So my recommendation on that is, well, now that you have that and you know which advisor is questioning maybe, why is it not showing that I'm doing it? You can go to this RO data details report. This is essentially the raw data. So whatever time period you're searching for over here to the right in your filtering sections, you can actually choose a specific advisor or technician. So once you do that, it'll drill down to that advisor's stats and you'll be able to see everything. So what this is going to do is within that time period, it will show you all the RO numbers. So you can simply paste those into inspect, look up the timeline, see if there's a video in there, whatever the case is. But you can copy those and put those in there. But there's a couple tabs that we're going to focus on here, and those are to the right. So we got number of videos in RO and videos sent to customer. Videos in RO specific to the technician, and the process of the advisors is to send them out to the customer. So we can see here this list of ROs didn't have any videos, so nothing was sent, right? So this is just a good way to QC what's going on, kind of prove that the stats are correct if somebody needs to look at it, and then spot check ROs. So once again, that could be done here in the RO data details. Now the same thing is true. If I were to hover over this report, you're going to be able to export it, with the 3 dots and send it out to whoever you need to, or just put it on your desktop, copy the RO numbers, put them in inspect. So this is going to be great for doing that. Just diving a little bit deeper because this is all the raw data that's in the system. Now navigating the dashboard. So let's take a look at that. So how do we navigate the dashboard, and why does it matter? So when we navigate the dashboard, when we're looking at the stats, does it matter which KPIs we're looking at? And is it based on how we load the videos? Well, the answer to that is yes. So we're going to go over a couple of touch points within the current reports that have existed since the beginning to identify those. So the examples that you're looking at right now, the first one up top is customer initial concerns, right? So this is a perfect example of loading a video into the primary line. As we look down, we have our additional service recommendations, right? Our true ASRs. We didn't drag them up to a primary line, but we do have the video attached to that as well. So depending on your process, right, it's going to depend on, well, which reports are going to make sense and matter the most, because these are two very different things. So we're tracking average dollars per ASR if you're using ASR videos, but average dollars per RO if you're using primary lines. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So if we hover over here, we can see we're on the RO summary report on the top left. Now we're going to go over the different touch points here on this, but you also have an RO type. So you can drill down specific to ASR lines, RO information that's internal, customer pay or warranty, right? But also do use your filtering, if you want to filter in here, Mazda, Audi, whatever the case is. But we're going to focus on these 3 because this process, when we talk about RO summary report, this is all inclusive to everything. You could have put a video in ASR section, you could put it in primary line, doesn't matter. We're going to take every single action that's done with enhanced media and we're going to put it into this RO summary report. So let's take a look at that. When we're looking at this section here, it's going to be section 1. We do the same thing for the ASR report, right? But we're giving you average dollars per RO. Now you could be at a situation that, you used enhanced media 30% of the time, 50% of the time, or even in some cases, 90% of the time. So if we take into account maybe 90%, then this may not make much sense, right? Because we're talking about this blue section here of not using video, and we're getting $961 per RO. But this is only 10% of your population. So I would say, depending on where you're at within the process of seeing the benefits of this, I would talk to your performance manager, and we can collectively get on a call as well, because there are ways to do this in an effective way, and some of those are going to be an inspect, right, to see how things have trended over time. So there's some easy things to do with the store scoreboards within that. But minus that, what we're looking at is this first section in blue is always going to be no media. So there is no pictures, no videos added anywhere to the RO. The next one here is going to be in green. So that one's just specific to photos. I highly recommend in some cases that, if the idea is to use one video, which is great, we put that into the primary line. Maybe we can use some photos for additional evidence and just tie those to the ASR line specifically. So I think photo can be beneficial. This next one here is going to be video. So we're getting with video in the orange, $1,030 average per RO when we use video. Now this is great with the new report that's out there, because now you have the exact percentage of, well, how many times are we sending out a video, creating it and sending it. So this will give you that. Now this last one is going to be average dollars per RO with video and picture. So pictures on there and video combined, if there's one of each, it'll put it into this category. What I also recommend is you can actually, if you see here, you got the dots up here, so you can always export these and send them out. But let's go to screenshot 2. So this one will give you an option. Now, currently you're looking at a enterprise or group level reporting entry. So we see the dealer option here. But traditionally, if you're, one location, one dealership, you'll see the advisor and technician section. So keep in mind that when we're looking at these, we are not giving you a percentage of technician utilization, right? If you're looking in the technician category. This goes back to the issue to where if you hover over these, it's going to show you the utilization percentage, right? Based on count, not percentage. So sorry, I might have said percent, but that's going to be count. So if you hover over the orange, it'll give you a count of video. You hover over the green, it'll be photos. But we're not giving you a utilization percentage. So that's where that new report comes in that you can look at and easily tie into it. However, as we look at these lines that hover over, this is a utilization percentage that's specific to the advisors sending out media. Now it's all inclusive, right? Not just photo, but video. So it's going to be both. So I know in some cases the idea is, we want to track video utilization. But hey, if the technician's taking a picture, let's get it out through the online quote. Let's send it out to them. So you can hover there, and you can always export it too from this section as well. But once again, it'll be all inclusive to photo and video, and this will be a true sample size of everything, all media that's created in the system. And then number 3, we're going to look at ROs by media sent. So RO by media sent is going to give you a specific percentage of each one of these categories, along with what we see over here in screenshot 1. So as far as what's being sent, what percentage overall from the group. Now the good news about this is, once again, as we're going over those dots, you can actually export it, and this is what it looks like in its simplest form. We've got our photos created, we've got our videos created, and then our total sent percentage. Now, if you're looking at these numbers and you see a couple advisors that are below the mark, we'll go back to that one report and do the research individually, right? Let's look at what ROs are being counted for. Maybe there was an internal that slipped in. You're like, hey, we're not going to, count that against you. So that's one way to do it as well. Now, this next one, this is the ASR summary. So if we look at the left here, we can see the report name once again is ASR summary, but this one works a little bit different. This one is only specific to media that you attach directly to an ASR line. This is excluding all primary line videos or everything that's added to the top section. This is only specific to those. Now, when we look at these stats here, we can also change it too, right? Because currently we're looking at all up at top. But we do have an option to go over to red and yellow. Now, what this is doing is I like to keep it on all and then transfer over to red to see the difference. Because we all know, dealerships, depending on your process, you do sell yellows, right? And I've seen it before where maybe something's marked as a 4. You sell it, somebody doesn't want to come back in 5 months. So we definitely want to keep those in there. for you to see, so you get a good sample size. But let's take a look at this one. So we're going to start in section 1 here. Now, what I can tell you is it's giving you specific data to ASR lines and nothing else. So what's interesting about this, and I'd like you to keep in mind, is that when we talk about this section, which is blue, which is no media added to an ASR, it is possible that your technician did add a primary line video and they talked about the ASR. It just wasn't attached to an ASR line. So effectively, this number could be inflated somewhat, right? Which is okay. I mean, we're still trying to prove the fact that, hey, by adding a video to an ASR line helps our dealership, right? Not only past, present, but also future. So please keep that in mind. So this is basically saying that no media was attached to a specific ASR line. And in some cases, right, that number is going to be higher than you may have 100 ROs, but your ASR lines could extend to 120, right? Because some ROs have 5 or 6 different ASRs added to them. But the next section too will show you same thing as the other section we looked at for average dollars per RO. It'll show you the closing rates and average dollars per ASR line. We'll hover over this. Now, this is not giving you a closing rate based on your hours, price or anything else, or even blended closing rate. It's actually line closing rate. So line for line, did we sell it or did we not? Then over here, we can see a jump, right? Based on not using it, $662 per ASR and sold at a higher rate, right, than the non-usage. So this is perfect evidence-based that could help not only drive your thinking of the product, but also the team, right? So let's get some of this information out to it. Now, obviously, if we're not seeing, the results that we like, well, what do we need to do, right? Talk to your PM. What are some things that we can, do to improve this? Are we using the system the way we want it to produce those results? So that brings up interesting conversations. Second to that, second screen, we're actually looking at the same thing, right? Advisor and technician stats. But these send rates here that we look on top are going to be specific to just ASRs. It's not going to be green inspection forms. It's not going to be primary line videos. It's only ASRs. So when you look at this send rate, this line here in this section, it's going to be different than the other report that we just looked at, right? Because they're two very distinct different things. So please keep that in mind. And then down here is just an example of when you do hover over those lines, we can see that Joy has a send rate of 87%. So the 87% that we see down here, basically the same thing. We're including photo and we're including all media. So let's do a quick deep dive here. So we're going to throw out a couple situations that may come up and how do we incorporate the different reports to help resolve those. So the first ones here is going to be my team has a low media percent send rate, right? Basically the advisors. Now this kind of goes back to the expectations. Well, were those extended to the staff? What are we trying to do here? Are we literally creating videos on every single RO, right? Or are we using it, when we want to sell something, whatever the case is? Regardless, if something was created, we got to send it out. Now, first thing that comes to mind, if we look at here at the sent to customer column, let's take a look at that. This is the new report. Who do we have that's underperforming? But also, who do we have that's performing well? And what are they doing, right? So I think it comes down to the big question, if somebody's underperforming, is it a skill or a will? Is it something that they're not familiar with? Or is it something that they just choose not to do? Now, we all know that our system has very specific rules to send these out. Maybe it is a skill issue, meaning they don't know how the system functions, right? If I have a green inspection form that goes directly to pending review, do they know it has to be sent out in pending review, the last stage? Do they know if there's ASRs that are added to an RO and you have video added to them anywhere, or a video added anywhere in the RO? That all ASR customer pay lines have to have hours, labor, and price. And if they don't, perfect example is wiper blades, right? If something's listed as 0 on there, at least for the hours, and maybe you just put in the part price and it's listed as a customer pay line, you can't send it out. So in some cases that could be on the technician, or some cases on advisors, right? But these certain rules that put in place that, hey, if I have an RO also that goes to pending review, parts has to be done, right? So there's all these things that come to mind, but at least to be able to drill down and find out exactly what's going on, right? Is this something where they don't fully understand the system on how it works? All right, let's check out another one. So this is an interesting one. Customer review rates are low. So in order to do that, I think going back to the RO data details is a perfect place to go to be able to see that. Now, as we go to RO data details, we can pull up any time frame that we have, and we can look over at this column that says video view rate. So this dealership within this time period has a 43.8% view rate on their videos that they've sent. So a couple things come to mind on this, and we kind of talked about this earlier. Well, first, let's identify how we're creating our videos. Have we given the technicians leverage to create multiple videos? Have we dictated the process to create just one that covers everything? So this goes back to that rule. If I have 5 videos, is the likelihood of the customer receiving an online quote lower, meaning they're not going to look at all 5 videos and maybe just 1 or 2, or just 1? But that's just kind of at a high level stat, right? But what if we dig into the data, right? Let's use this new report to look at the videos viewed section for each advisor. So down here we see Pete. Once again, Pete, I think we used him earlier in our example. Pete has 56 videos that were added to ROs, sent out 33 of them. 23 weren't sent, but 27 out of 33 that were sent were viewed. Now, granted, we want Pete to send out every video, but the ones that he did, the 33, 27 of them were viewed. That's a lot higher than a 45% view rate. So is Pete doing something different? Let's find out what Pete's doing. So we have all these other advisors that have considerably lower view rates from the customers. So if it's something in Pete's doing, maybe we could do that for the other advisors, right? Or there's another mindset too. It's like, well, if this is global and every single advisor is being affected, what is there anything that we can do to help drive that? And one of them could be, hey, let's add some verbiage into the welcome text, right? So whatever texting system you're using, hopefully Xtime, right? Let's add that verbiage in there to give the customer a heads up. Let's use marketing. Let's use some information in our communications that we send out, or maybe even have postage. Now, granted, if you do things like that, and there's an expectation that it will be done on every RO, that kind of hold you accountable. But I think it's a great option. It's like, hey, let's try adding it into the welcome auto arrival text. Let's put some type of verbiage in there. It doesn't have to be too long, right? So there's certain things that we can do. But let's identify first, is it a global level? Is it certain users? What's going on? Maybe Pete's, talking this up in the drive, hey, please look out for the text message I'm going to send you. Or maybe even he's opting into, customers to text message more so than, email, whatever that is. But this is a great starting point to look, because something's going on with Pete, and he's doing it very well. The next one here we're going to look at, are my technicians really creating quality videos? So we also talked about this one earlier, right? Because we can't, if you're creating 100 videos, 500 videos, amongst your dealership, each month, we can't check every single one of those. It's going to be almost impossible. Now, I highly recommend checking those from time to time, not all of them, but, seeing what the quality is. Are we talking about the multi-point inspection? Are we talking about the primary lines before ASR lines? Are we introducing ourselves? But more so, you want a quick snapshot and say, well, the mandate is we create one video. So let's take a look. So let's go over to the RO data details report. Let's check out our time frame. And let's just dabble into this. Let's check it out. So we know we create one video. Well, let's look at all the sections here that have a video or not. So we can come over here and say, video sent to customer, but here's the one, videos in RO. What are the time frames on these? So if we're creating a primary line video that's 4 seconds, the technician is getting credit for it and the utilization, but it's not a quality video. We can come down here, we got one 11 seconds. This 11-second video was a primary line video, and it was sent to the customer. it was viewed, 75% of it. So that's about 6 seconds. But we also got some more under here that's 3 or 5. And we can also tie this to the to the technician. I cut out that section here, but you can also bring up the technician name. So this is a great way to do that, right? Are we creating quality videos? Because chances are a 3-second and a 5-second, it's not quality. So the idea is, well, if a customer is viewing this, what's their perception about our dealership, right? We promised a video MPI inspection, and they get one that's 5 seconds. How does that expose us? So interesting example, but as it relates to quality, I would definitely recommend this is the place to go to that. Just a quick snapshot, see what's going on with your team. All right, so closing thoughts. So once again, I appreciate all your time on here. I definitely enjoy talking about reporting, not just media. I'm a reporting guru. But there's a couple things, closing thoughts and things that, want you to take away, right, that can be helpful. First one is expectations for video utilization. They're essential before, not only, related to process, but the expectations is how are we going to use data day in and day out, the first 90 days compared to the last 90 days, right? Because this is kind of the fruits of the labor, right? We're getting good. Don't let perfect, kill good, because good's good. We want to get to this point and then this point. But just to be clear, there are expectations that are sent down to the staff, but what are the internal expectations on how we view reporting and how do we act on it, right? And the second one, export the data as much as possible. Send it out to the team for visibility, right? I think, there's this huge competition factor, right? And somebody's doing better than others. Somebody sees where they're at below somebody else. It's like, hey, I'm down here. This is a team effort. I need to get my stats back up. So I think, doing things like that can be highly visible. But also the touch points. So these new reporting sections, right, easy to export, easy to look at, use that to your benefit, right? Because once again, within that first 90 days, we're typically saying, well, we got to look at this day in and day out, right? We need to, start a good foundation in the beginning in that first 90 days. So hopefully this was helpful, and, the new reporting, at least the new reporting end of it, is a good thing, right? And we'll continue to do more in that category. But once again, thank you all for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, George. Before we get into questions, in case you joined late, I want to remind everybody that you can enter questions in the GoToWebinar console on the right-hand side of your screen. We have had a few come in already, so let me get into those. All right, first up, if you add the video to the primary line, I've noticed the media doesn't count towards the technician creation rate for ASRs. Can you explain why this is?
Yeah, so if we're talking about the dashboard, and hopefully I'm on the right page. So if we're talking about the reporting from a dashboard perspective, actually, let me do this. If you don't mind, let me go back to that screen. So if we're looking at RO summary and ASR summary, right, very two different distinct things, where what we're saying, and hopefully you're seeing this, is that the RO summary is going to be all-inclusive to everything, right? The RO summary, if there's a video that exists in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to take into account that. Now, the ASR summary is only going to be specific to ROs that have an ASR added to it. So it's going to exclude everything else. And when we're talking about creation as well, and even advisor send rates, we do know that there were some issues before in the green inspection forms where we weren't really counting everything that we should have, right? So it was fixed in November. But the RO ones, I'd be interesting to see an example too at some point, and we can take that offline. But these are very two distinct different processes, and as my understanding, we are taking into account all video creation in the RO summary, whether it's primary line or ASR line.
Great, thank you.
Great question.
We've got another one here. How do we measure the results as it relates to tech and service advisor user percentage for photo and video?
Can you run that by me again? Sorry, you cut out.
Sure. So the question is, how do we measure the results as they relate to tech and service advisor usage percentage for photo and video?
Great question. Let's take a look at that one. And I think that's kind of essentially what we solved within these new touch points, right, of the new report. So when we talk about utilization, from a technician standpoint, we are essentially talking about utilization specific to video, right, in video creation. So when we look at this column here that shows percentage RO video utilization, right, this location's at 50%. This is not being inflated by additional videos that are added to an RO. We're giving it a distinct count of 157 with video out of the 311 ROs, right? So that's exactly 50%. So this touch point, when we're looking at technicians, right, we can see exactly what that utilization is for the team and then specific person. Now, the other one, right, is, well, utilization based on an advisor percentage. Now, this holds true if we're talking about an advisor percentage based on, creating videos, but which is interesting, but we're, truly trying to find out what are the advisors' send percentages, right? Because that's what they're measured by. Now, when we're looking at this stat, this is an enhancement also that I've thrown in, but we don't give you a percentage on that, right? We essentially give you a video sent to customer, the 111, and then the video is not sent. So we don't give you a percentage of the 56 divided by 111. We just know that there's 56 total for the dealership, and this is how it parses out down here amongst the different team members. Sorry, in this one. So we have our advisors here, and this is what we're looking at, 56 not sent. So great question. When it comes to technicians, right, and I'm thinking this is the right path, is that technicians, we're talking about video utilization, meaning creating videos, and then advisors, we're just concerned about, are they, at what percentage are they sending them out? But once again, for the advisor portion, we're looking at
All right, this is a more simple one. Where's the report for pictures attached?
Report for pictures attached. So in a report for pictures attached, so are we trying to find a report where we can easily access the pictures that were added to it, or are we looking at picture utilization? So if we're talking about picture utilization, we do not have a stat that says specific to utilization unless you slice and dice some of the data in there. But in addition to that, our reporting, a little bit different than Inspect, because if you're familiar with Inspect, you could go into an all closed ROs report, click on a link, and it takes you directly to that information. Unfortunately, in our reporting, there are no links to access the media specifically. You would have to open up the RO and Inspect to view it. So if either way, we were going with the question. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I'd say so. Thank you. Another one here. When will we be able to look at C, W, I, and S?
I'm not familiar with that term. Tiffany, is that something you're familiar with on your end?
I think they're just referring to the pay types. Customer warranty, internal, and maybe body shop would be the S, or sublet. I don't believe we can access the sublet. We do have customer pay, warranty, and internal.
Internals, and that's specific to the ASR, the way the ASR line is designated, or the way the RO imports? Do you know?
All right, Tiffany, thanks for hopping in on that one. Next question, does the dealer receive credit for review if the video is watched after the RO is closed in Inspect?
They do not. So for example, we do have a Lyft rideshare report that will show information of rides that happened before, but we don't put an RO number on it until it updates when the RO closes, right? So it's kind of a report that grows. What we're looking at is all activity that has happened between when the RO is opened and then when the RO is closed officially. So once it's closed, right, it's going to feed into the reporting the next day. However, if events happen after that RO is closed, those are not taken into account into the report itself. So essentially, no.
All right, thanks, George. Next question here. We have an attendee that says, at my store, we have the ability to send video directly to the client outside of the ASR inspection report. Is there reporting to see which technicians send videos directly to clients versus videos sent within the ASR inspection report?
Great question, and not yet. And I think because there's, you could toss a coin, on how many dealerships you talk to that would like to do it that way and track it, right, in a non-automated process, but, not abide by the, some of the rules of the online quote. However, what I can tell you, and this is what I've heard, is that they are working on it, and that is a goal, and there's many reasons behind that, not just dealer facing. And all I can tell you is, yes, it is in the pipeline, and yes, it is coming, but I cannot tell you a date on when this is going to happen. But I know it has been a key focus from our reporting and programming team.
All right, last question here. If the ASR is sent via SMS and email, and the customer only looks at the SMS media, does the email count against views?
It does not. We are giving you a one send. So if you send it once, we're giving you a one, right? We're not going to be combining the different forms. We just want to know if it was sent or not. Doesn't matter the channel.
All right, looks like we don't have any more questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. George, thank you for an informative session. I certainly hope everybody found today helpful. As always, we appreciate your attendance and encourage you to reach out to our team with any additional questions you may have. George, any closing thoughts?
No, thank you all once again for your time. I'm going to head over here to the last page. Performance managers, we work as a team, right? So if there's certain things that you have, additional questions about, or maybe didn't answer them fully, or at least I didn't, please reach out to your PM. I'd love to jump on a call, kind of go through some of these points and, share our different ideas. But the door is always open. So I'll leave it at that. Here's my email address, or once again, you can reach out to your PM and we can partner together. But once again, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.